Hello, I'm Crafty Patty, and you're here because you want to know how to make this sensory toy for baby. It rattles, it scrunches, it's got lots of sensory different feels and touches with different ribbons and different fabrics. Babies love them, so keep watching. I'm going to show you how to make it. And here's a couple I've already made up. This one's measuring approximately 8 inches or 20 centimeters, and this one's a bit bigger at 8.5 or 21.5 centimeters. But you can make them any size you want. Just use up the square pieces of fabric that you already have. I've already gone ahead and I've cut 4 pieces of my baby fabric and measuring approximately 5 inches or say 12.8 centimeters. And depending on what size you're making your top will depend the size that you have for your quilt batting. I've just got a 10-inch square here, or approximately 25.5 centimeters, and I'm using some dimple chenille, I guess you could call that, and again the same size, and I will cut it down to fit my top when I get to that stage. This chenille has got a bit of a stretch to it, so it's a little bit more tricky to work with. So if you prefer to just have a flannel back, that's fine too. But I kind of like this because it gave that extra sensory feel to it. I also added a rattle to each one of these sections just to give it some more fun for the baby. And this is what they look like. And I will leave a link in the description box below if you want to get these as well, and I did get these off Amazon. You can buy Crinkle plastic online as well, especially made for this type of application, but why buy it if I've already got it? The first one I made, I used the cellophane that you get that's wrapped around flowers. This one I had ordered a sweater online, and it came in this bag. I don't generally like to have plastic around, but if I've got it, why not recycle it, right? So I cut out a piece of this and I added it to this one. I don't know if you can tell the difference. Here's this one, and here's this one. It's almost a deeper sound. And for the one we're doing today, I'm going to use my cereal bag. So just make sure it's nice and clean. And we'll use this to make our bag today. And all I'm going to do is just rip down the side here, and then we can cut our square out of it. These are the pieces of fabric that we're going to be using today, in some pinks and the white bauble chenille for the back. And I've picked up some ribbons that will look cute with that. All in different textures, because that's the whole idea, is to have that different sensory feel. So we've got one that's got a ribbing to it. You can feel the hearts on that, and this is really silky soft. I also found this at the dollar store, and this has got lots of different little feels to it. The rickrack is really cute. This is nice and soft, and then you got the little baubles, and then a different ribbon again. And you can look for ribbons in different widths. This one's 1/2 inch or 12 millimeter. And this one is actually 7/8 of an inch and 22 millimeters. All right, so let's start putting this all together. And this is the placement that I'm going to do. So we're going to be sewing these two together. So right sides together, and we'll be sewing along here. And the same with this, right sides together, and we'll sew this. So I'll just go to the sewing machine and get that done. I'm sewing these kind of projects. I like to use my side of my presser foot as a guide to sew along to keep a nice straight line. This happens to be approximately 1/4 inch, or that would be about 0.6 centimeters, I believe. So again, get started, back stitch, and all the way to the end, and back stitch. Do the same for the next one. If I'm doing more than one piece, I just put them in at the same time. I'm now going to put this one in, and I'm just going to bring this forward till it catches, and I'm at the right width apart, and I just go again. And the ones that we brought together, we're just going to come in with our scissors, and that's those two. Now we're going to open these up, and we can just do a quick little finger press with our nail and our finger just to open this up. And the same with this one. And now that you've got them nicely finger pressed, we're going to put right sides together, matching up the different fabric for both sides. And the important thing now is that you need to make sure that these seams here are perfectly matched up, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stitching in the ditch. So just open it up and make sure those are exactly together. And this matching up is much more important than what's happening on the end here. So just pin that in place. And again, matching up here. Press your foot to the edge and sew along. And now we can open that up, and again, just come in and finger press this seam open. And there's our top, and now we're going to add the ribbon. On this one, I added 4 pieces of ribbon on each side, and on this one, I just added 3. Now, it does make it easier if you're turning between 2 pieces of ribbon, so I would suggest if you're just making this for the first time, then just add 3 ribbons around the edge, and I think that's plenty anyways. Decide what ribbon you want to use and how many you want of each color, and if you place it on your cutting board with your rotary cutter, it makes it nice and fast. Here's my 5-inch mark, and I cut them all at 5 inches, so at 5, at 10, at 15, and at 20. And do the same for all the other ribbon that you want. And then I'm going to take this to my ironing board, fold them in half, and just put a nice crease in them so it stays nice and flat. Grab one with right sides facing out. Get that one ready. Grab your next one, fold it in half. Press that one. And keep going. And once you're happy with your placement, then you're ready to pin them on. I just so happen to have this placed on my cutting mat, so then I can see where it's evenly placed. I mean, it's not that important, but if you want to use your guidelines, then certainly that's a bonus. So making sure that you've got your folded in towards the center, your raw edges matching your raw edges. I'm going to be placing it so it hangs over the edge about 1/4, just to make sure I grab these, and we want to make sure that these are very secure because you don't want it coming off in the baby's mouth or whatever. We want it to be safe. So 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeters, and then just pin them in place. This one here, instead of folding it in half like so, I'm going to open it up like that and pin it in place so it's not as bulky. So I'm going to come in again and using my middle here to match it up and placing the pin in both sides of this one. So I'm going to carry on, and I'll go around and I'll pin all these in place, and then I'll meet you at the sewing machine. This time I went just halfway to the ribbon, back stitch, all the way past to the ribbon, back stitch, and on to the next one. Pivot on your corner, lifting it up, and around to the next one. So this is when you can come in now and measure your top. Mine is sitting at 9 3/8, or about 23.5 centimeters. So I want to cut my backing and my inner fleece quilt batting at the same measurement. I'm going to be cutting my crinkle plastic a little bit bigger because it tends to slide around. So here's a square piece of batting that isn't quite square. So I'm just going to trim this up with my rotary cutter and make sure it's got a nice straight edge here. And the same with my bottom. And the beauty of having a cutting mat, your Omnigrid ruler, and a rotary cutter, it's just so easy to square up a piece of fabric or whatever you're working on. So as I said, I was going to cut this at 9 3/8. I've matched up my mark with my ruler here, and if I'm off on the side, I can just move it till it's right on, right marking. And now I can cut this off. That's my one measurement. And now I can come in this way and cut my other one. And now we've got that squared up. That's ready to go. I'll do the same with my backing. And when I'm using my board, I like to have my numbers showing so I know exactly where I'm cutting. But just remember that you're minusing off that 1 inch. So right here is not 11 inches, it's actually 10 because this measures to the edge here. So again, I'm just going to square this up. It's looking not too bad here. So I'm just going to cut off and make it 9 3/8. And I'm just going to cut some of this off so it's not so awkward to work with. I'm going to cut the plastic a little bit bigger because it tends to slide and I want to make sure I catch it when I'm sewing. So this one I'm going to cut a 10-inch square, or that would be approximately 25.4 centimeters. We now have all our pieces cut, and now we can make our sandwich and put it all together. First down is the batting. Then I'm going to come in with my crinkle paper, crinkle plastic. And then the bauble, chenille, right sides up, and then my top facing down. And then once I put this on, I'm just making sure that all my ribbon is facing inside. That's our sandwich. I want you to go around and do your corners first. And as you can see, I don't have them evenly lined up. So I'm going to take my top, my backing, crinkle, and then match up these two. You can see through the crinkle paper and make sure that all these three are joined up perfectly. Don't worry about the crinkle paper. As long as you've got an even amount on all sides. If I need to slip that up just a bit. And make sure those three are all perfectly aligned. Let's go around to the opposite corner and do the same over here. Again, corner, my corner, here's the crinkle, and then matching up that because I can see through plastic to make sure that all these three layers are nicely aligned. And this is a little bit fiddly because there's stretch in the cotton batting and there's stretch in the chenille. All right, so do the same with the other two corners and then do the same and pin all the way in the middles as well. Now decide where you're going to leave your opening. I made sure I chose a side where my batting and my lining have got lots of extra so I can turn that in for my final stitching. And if you've got two colored pins, that's great. I've used red along here, and then I've used yellow to remind me this is the opening where I'm not going to sew. So I'll start sewing here, going all the way around and stop at my yellow pin. I started with my regular sewing foot just to sew on the ribbons, but now I'm going to change to my walking foot, and this is what it looks like. It's just going to help to not bunch up all these different fabrics, because we've got this crinkle paper in here, we've got ribbon, we've got cotton, we've got the fleece, and it'll just help to not buckle. So we need to take off this presser foot, just with the screw on the side. There's a little hook here that comes up and goes over this right on the side here. And then my little hooks here hold the foot in place, and I just put my screw back in again. Like so. All right, so we've got the walking foot on, and it just so happens that the edge of my walking foot matches perfectly for the edge that I want to sew along. That brings my next sew line past our 1/4 inch 0.6 centimeter line that we made in the beginning. So we're starting right at the beginning of the opening where we're going to turn, and we can start here. So around we go. And then when I get to my corner, needle down, pivot, and do the next side. And I'm coming up to my yellow pin, and we will stop here and backstitch. Take this off, we're going to trim up our corners and add our little rattles, and we're almost there. And just turn it over and give it a check and make sure you have indeed caught all your batting. And come in with your scissors and trim up to your last sewn line. Take off those corners and then go around and clean up all your edges and take off the excess. Don't cut into that second sewing line, of course. And clip off your corners. Now to turn this, you've got your filler and your plastic, your backing, and your top. You want to go in between your backing and your top to turn. Okay? So the easiest way is I find is I just grab the opposite corner and I push that in like this, grab a stick, and then bring it out the hole here. Keep pulling it down. And then once you've got it started, you can take that stick out and just work it through. And once you've got it turned, come in with the stick and just get those corners poked out. And once you've got it all turned and your corners poked out, I'm just going to take this to the ironing board to give it a really nice pressing. Okay, we've got it pressed. Now we're going to find the layers. This is the quilt batting next to my top. And here's the plastic next to the bubble chenille. I'm going to place my rattles in between these two layers, in between the quilt batting and the plastic. So let's pop in 4 of those, and we're going to get 1 to go into each corner. So just find 1. And I'll just bring a pin and just to secure, make sure it stays put. Find another one and put it into the next corner. Okay, so I've secured 1 rattle in each corner here, just holding it on with a pin just to make sure it stays in place. And now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch in the ditch. This is why we wanted these to be nicely matched up so we can stitch right through. So here's your opening. Find your opposite end. And we're going to start from here and go all the way down. So into the machine again. Still got my walking foot on. And I'm matching up my needle to go right into the stitched line of the two pieces of fabric. That's what sewing in the ditch means. So I've got that right in between these two pieces of fabric, and if I pulled it, you'd be able to see the stitches. I'm stitching again right on top of that. And back stitch. And so we've stitched in the ditch from here up to here, and now we're going to come across and stitch in the ditch across this way. And now to finish it off, we're going to top stitch and close up our opening. So we need to get close to our edges here. So just take out your pins, let those little toys, the rattles, fall to the middle, and we can just secure them into the middle here with our pin again. And do the same for the other ones. And here's my opening here. So I'm just going to tuck that in. Make sure we've got this folded over. And pin that in place. Oh, I'm dropping lots of pins on the floor. All right, and now we're ready to sew and top stitch all the way around and fairly close to the edge. And around we go. And you're all done. We can take out the pins and let those rattles just roam free within their little squares. And there's our final one that we made together with the 4 rattles in the pockets and the ribbons and the bauble chenille on the back. A fun toy for a baby. Okay, you might not want to listen to the sound, but I thought it'd be interesting to see if you can tell the difference. This was the floral cello wrap. This was the sweater bag. I think it sounds a little softer. And this was the cereal bag. Does it sound like Captain Crunch? Well, there you go. Babies love them. So have fun making up lots of those with your scrapped fabric.